Welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas Wonder podcast. We're so excited you're here. If you're new, welcome. And if you have yet to subscribe, go ahead and do so now. That way you know when the next episode airs. Today marks the 11th day until Christmas. And you can tell we're getting there because all the holiday parties and the cookie exchanges are happening this and next week. And who doesn't love a good cookie exchange? Today's story is an interesting one. It looks at how Santa actually determines who should be on the naughty list and who should be on the nice list. It's an adaptation from a story called Santa Claus's Record by Abby Phillips Walker. Grab your favorite hot drink, your cozy blanket, and let's hear how Santa decides who makes the nice list or the naughty list. Santa Claus's List. With 11 days until Christmas, Santa was tired. He had been working hard all day with little rest since Thanksgiving. He sat by the fireplace and was drifting asleep when he heard a buzzing in his ear. "Wake up, Santa! It's almost Christmas! Emails, texts, and letters are flooding in from children all over the world, and we still need to review your list." His left eye popped open, followed by his right. He looked at the little fairy standing on his knee, staring at him, his great-niece Mary Claus right by her side, nodding. The fairy had just returned from a trip around the world to check in on the very good children so she could report back to Santa. I'm sorry to report that she also looked in on the naughty girls and boys, too. Santa rocked this way and that as he worked himself out of the chair. "Umph!" he said when he finally stood up. He made his way to his bookshelf where he pulled out an old book. He wiped it off with his arm, sending a cloud of dust into the air. "Achoo!" Mary sneezed. "You really should update your list, Great Uncle. Put it online. It's much easier to update." "Why would I do that? Decades of history and secrets are in here. Right, my old friend?" Santa lovingly patted the book as he laid it on the table before him and opened it. "Hey, Allen, Anderson, Aston," he said. "Oh, the A's are all good this year," interrupted the fairy. "I'm so sorry, though. The Billings children have fought non-stop this year." "But they still have time to improve," Santa said. "I'll put a faint mark beside their names." "C, D, and E are all good, and most of the F's, too," Mary said. "The Fairview girl, though, skipped school," interrupted the fairy. "Bad, very bad," said Santa, shaking his head. "I'll have to put one black mark there." "How are the G's?" Santa asked, as Mary handed him a cup of hot peppermint tea. "All good," said the fairy. "But in the age line, the Hubbard boy, the oldest one, spent his time complaining about taking care of the dog instead of willingly helping his mom." "Really? But he asked for the dog last year, with promises to take care of it," Mary chimed in. "I know. It hasn't worked out that way, though," said the fairy. "That may be," said Santa, "but he might do better this Saturday. I'll wait before I mark his name." The fairy slightly nodded and continued. "The next 3 letters are all good," she told him. "But the Lawler girl didn't practice at all Saturday, as she had promised. Instead, she played all day with friends and came home really late." "What? Are you sure?" Mary asked, quietly beseeching her great-uncle to give the Lawler girl another chance. She had a special place in her heart for the girl still struggling with her dad's death. Santa simply dropped his head and shook it briefly. "We need to keep going," he said. "What about the M's?" "I'm going to give the naughty ones a second chance," the fairy said. "They weren't really that bad." "Okay. Moving on," Santa continued. "There aren't any more marks until you get to the T's, right, fairy?" Mary said. The fairy nodded her head. "The T's? Oh my gosh. Who?" Santa asked. The Tamlin girl, the oldest one, wouldn't let her little sister play with her last week when her friend was over. And this summer, the Thurmore boy took a toy truck without permission from the local toy store," replied the fairy. "I'll have to give them a black mark, both of them, but I'll make them very light," Santa said. "For as I said before, there's still a few weeks left for improvement." "What about the U's and V's? Anyone we should know about?" Mary asked. She tried to review all the children with the fairy before their meeting with Santa, but they ran out of time. The fairy held up her wand. "The W's," she said, "have so many marks that I dread to tell you about them. The Walton boy lied to his grandmother about where he went this summer, and the youngest Wilford girl refused to leave her big sister alone when she had friends over, and the Woods boy destroyed a friend's bike and blamed it on someone else, and the right—" "Oh, dear! Don't tell me any more," Santa said, as he closed the book. "I think I'll erase all the marks and start from right now. Come back in 2 days, and we'll review the list again, and from then the marks will count." "That's so nice of you, great uncle," Mary said with a smile. Santa looked at her. "I really think it must be very hard to be good every minute of the day, the entire year. I'll give the kids another chance to do better," he replied. The fairy looked between Santa and Mary and back again at Santa with a sly smile and laugh. "Why are you laughing?" Santa asked. "I was thinking," said the fairy, "that you probably remember what it was like to be a boy." "No," replied Santa. "I have always been an old man, but I have known many boys, and girls too," he added. The fairy nodded in Mary and Santa's direction, and said good night before disappearing up the chimney. "Good night," called Mary. "See you in 2 days," Santa called out. He then sat back down in his chair and got comfy, settling in for a nap with Mary by his side. The end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you can hear tomorrow's story. We look forward to sharing it with you. And also, share it with your friends and family. I'll see you tomorrow.